Weekend Review, a look back at the week and forward to the weekend. Music, movies, goodies, and more. It's MyMichelleLive Weekend Review. Here's Michelle.
Yes, I am. I'm Michelle Mendoza, and we are taking you into the weekend. Looking back at the week is where we start, and then we'll finish off the broadcast with some fun things that you can look forward to. So it's like, get the dirty business out of the way first, but we're going to do it in the ultimate fun way. You need to just get ready for this. It's about to happen. It's the Riz Report.
Let's review the week. The Riz Report with Adam Rizzieri.
Yes, the man with the name that no one, not even Big Voice Guy, can get right. We're gonna work on that, Adam.
You know what? It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, Rizzieri. Or if you're in Texas, good old Rizzieri.
Rizzieri. There you go. I'm glad you're very flexible. Oh, that the rest of the world would be so flexible. Oh, that our government
my goodness,
could be
I know.
so
But
flexible.
you know what? When you grow up with a last name with this many vowels in it, you got to be flexible. The first day of school, you're always going to have to correct the teacher during roll call. But then as you get a little bit older, you kind of know what to expect, and you can just kind of proactively go after it.
You just kind of roll with it.
Well, yeah, and for all the middle name people out there, I can definitely relate to that too. The thing that I always heard, first, I go by Adam, my middle name, but when people find out that my first name is Steven, the thing I always hear is, "Oh, so your real name is Steven." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but Adam's my real name too." It's
our kindred spirits. I had to change my name because my family from the South, you, Mr. Dallas guy, my family's from the South. So my name, I was born Lisa Michelle. I always went by Michelle. So I had the same thing. I never heard my first name unless I was in trouble. Lisa Michelle. So yeah, there you go.
That's kind of rock and roll that Lisa Michelle sounds like a celebrity. Like, can I have your autograph, please?
Yeah, you can. Go right ahead.
That's Lisa Michelle over there, guys.
In our Riz Report, we look at happenings during the week. But the very cool thing about what we're doing is that you'll hear actual news stories from actual sources, actually looked into, actually read, even actually investigated. But there are news stories that for some reason, they just end up on many cutting room floors in America media. So you're going to hear stuff that you may not hear anywhere else. And as you get to know us, you know, we don't just report it because it feels good or because it goes along with some ideology. We really are looking into this. And that helps you and I to be, it's a phrase that's been lost in America. It's called logical. Look it up.
Does that mean like does that imply common sense?
Yes, which really needs to be changed because it's not common anymore, to be honest. But let's start with one of the issue that affects us all. We are in vaccine nirvana, and as such, we are seeing that Dr. Fauci, the guru of all knowledge and the ultimate authority on all things vaccine, for some reason, who shall not be questioned, shall not be doubted, is really pushing for this thing called vaccine passports. What do we do with that?
Yeah, shoot, right? Like it kind of almost requires a moment of silence just to think about it. The concept of vaccine passports is almost like the start of what we might kind of see as medical discrimination. There was this big interview between Dr. Fauci and George Stephanopoulos earlier this week. And George Stephanopoulos, of course, we know that this guy used to work for the Clinton administration. We know that he's been in mainstream news media for quite some time. But his job right now is to ask a lot of questions. And what came out of this interview was really kind of an absence of questions and an absence of critical thought, as Fauci basically was talking about concepts that were kind of driving us towards this mandate to be vaccinated. And truly using quotes like, "Vaccines don't work unless everyone complies." Well, I thought if I get a vaccine, then I'm vaccinated, right? Like if I get a measles vaccine or if I get a polio shot, I'm not going to get that, right? So how could Dr. Fauci say that vaccines don't work unless everyone complies? But then also going a step further and saying that vaccinated people have to continue to wear a mask and avoid others in public, even after multiple vaccinations. I mean, what's the end goal here? I think about those who are, immune compromised, about those who are maybe pregnant, those who have survived cancer or are currently going through cancer treatments. Why can't people ask really important questions about what the implications might be if maybe an unintended result occurs from vaccination?
If
I think
vaccinations are so good, why are we afraid to ask the questions? Why isn't Mr. Stephanopoulos willing to say, okay, here's some things that should be addressed? It has switched from reporting news to propaganda. It's so much so that many scientists are saying, wait a minute, how did Fauci become unquestionable? There's a price to the pandemic, but there's also a price to panic. I spoke, because I'm not afraid to ask those questions, to Jay Richards of the Discovery Institute. They wrote a book on this. I'm just going to play a 1-minute segment of what he had to say.
All sorts of things that, if you really look at the scientific literature, don't make a lot of sense, are nevertheless sort of imposed on us, whether it's wearing 2 masks or population-wide lockdowns, which have never had been tested until 2020. This idea that everyone should be locked in houses together, healthy and unhealthy alike, that was never tested. So there was no science behind this. What there was is a hypothesis that it would work. And it got run on the human population in 2020. And if you disagreed with it, you were told, well, you're obviously, some kind of occultic pseudoscientist. When in fact, it's like, no, I just don't seem to see that there's any evidence. There's a difference between the evidence of science and what, particular spokespeople in the federal government and social media say the science is. Those are 2 different things. And that's this book, The Price of Panic, that I co-authored with Doug Axe and William Briggs. It's really, the title says it all. We're talking about 2 contagions. There's a course of viral contagion that started in late 2019 or early 2020 and continues, and that has a real toll. But any response to something like that is also going to have a toll. It's going to have a cost.
Everything has a cost. And we really should be concerned. We should be asking the question, especially when we're dealing with something so very new. And what is extremely underreported, Adam, is the problems that are arising, the deaths, and there are deaths from the vaccine, the side effects, and the fact that we may not know what side effects are going to be going on in the future.
Without question. I have someone who is just an amazing person that works with me on my team at my marketing agency. And she is a person who is immune compromised. She battles with a very strong version of celiac disease.
Ooh, okay.
Also, though, she's an incredibly impressive person. She has battled and defeated cancer many times, the same type of cancer that took my stepsister from me. She's an amazing person, incredibly strong. She got the vaccine, and it strongly impacted her ability to smell. Now, she took the vaccine really kind of being a part of what her doctors are saying is kind of a test case. How does the vaccine impact those who are both immune compromised and also those who have survived significant cancer treatment? So we just don't know. And so we're kind of looking to other places for data, right? Right now, we're kind of looking to Israel as a test case. And Israel, without any sort of freedoms here, the population has been mandated that they will be vaccinated. And so we're going to see Israel sort of emerge as this test case that we'll look to as a data source, really kind of indicating the data right now we're seeing is kind of scary, but it's indicating that potentially if you were to have battled the coronavirus naturally, that perhaps you'd be actually better off. We're seeing data right now, and this is going to lead me to getting canceled, obviously, but because I can't talk about real data, right? But we're seeing data that indicates in young populations and in senior populations that there's a strong disparity, that 40 times more likely to die from being vaccinated by the Pfizer vaccine if you're a senior than had you just battled coronavirus naturally. This has been run through mathematical models. This is really concerning stuff. To think that all these senior citizens would have contracted coronavirus and battled it naturally and defeated it after obviously experiencing the symptoms that come with it, to think that they would have survived, I mean, shoot, we really have to ask questions about is the cure here actually worse than the disease? I mean, maybe we should do a little bit more research here and see what's best for us. Because also too, these vaccines are being just very generally distributed, right? So we might all have different nuances to our personal health. We might have different things that affect us on a daily basis. We need to know the differences between each type of vaccine, and then also how that really what that means to us, right? I mean, we have to know what implications might come. If I'm a person that has asthma and maybe high blood pressure, which of the vaccines should I take and why? And how much data supports that particular hypothesis? We have to talk to our physicians. We have to talk to people that we trust. We have to make a personal decision for ourselves. When the government goes so far as to say, you are mandated to take this vaccine, it takes away a lot of a lot of free choice that we as Americans should absolutely have. With Fauci's push for really these vaccine passports, we may find ourselves in a situation where we can't travel without documented proof of vaccination. So the government or American Airlines, they're not going to care about my survival against cancer, or the fact that I deal with an autoimmune disorder, or maybe that I'm pregnant. They don't care about that. My passport says I was not vaccinated, therefore I'm not going to be able to travel. If we're looking at that, what does that sort of creep out to? What sort of legs grow from that when it comes to our personal liberties and our decision making?
I am putting a link to that study that you cited about the danger to young people and to those who are over 70, especially in our older generation, and the dangers that we're seeing and deaths from the vaccine. This, if we're in an era of, my body, my choice, suddenly it's not your choice. If we're in an era where we say, hey, choice should be respected, and we're not giving all the information, then it is not truly a choice. You got all the information and you want to take the virus, the vaccine for the virus, then you have all the information. You are informed. But there is nothing worse than later going, why didn't someone tell me? Someone else that we had on our show, Adam, in recent past, talking about the vaccine. And by the way, as you're watching, you can go to MyMichelleLive to both of these are in past shows, one in our Health Watch show, one in our Sci-Tech show. This is Dr. John Catanzaro speaking on our show about the mRNA vaccine and what his concerns are.
mRNA is a segment of the protein that has random type approaches and unspecified actions. So, like, in other words, it's unpredictable. You don't know if it's going to do what it's designed to do because of the fact that mRNA in itself has a very short activity span. Everybody wants to think that mRNA is a reliable type of biotechnology that's going to be the best platform to use. Now, it's still obviously still experimental. So it's going to take months to years to see what kind of effects it's going to have. And when you're talking about trying to build herd immunity with a vaccine, millions of people that are going to be pretty much receiving this, we're going to start seeing different type of effects. If they're not immediate, they'll probably happen, as we go down the road. I'm not a proponent of the mRNA because of the fact that it's random, it's not specific, and it's unpredictable.
Well, so that's Dr. John Catanzaro, co-founder and CEO of Neo7 Logics. He has been a doctor for many years and has serious concerns, and he is not alone. There are a lot of folks who do. But you mentioned something, Adam, that was very interesting. Israel. They have chosen a real, almost a totalitarian kind of approach. And it is a great experiment. It's something that we can look at as you said, a test case. So, and that's fine. Test case. Mm-hmm. Let's see how it works. But we can't have that mindset with other things that would be a test case, kind of like Well, I don't know. Let's just say Texas. Come on, Texas. You're in Texas now. You guys are opening up. I just want to
Yeehaw!
say,
Welcome to
God bless
Texas.
Texas.
God bless Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. It's all about personal freedom, right? It's about our liberties. So the governor of Texas and Mississippi both, they're basically putting the power of choice back in the hands of the people, back into the management of small businesses. So the government is not mandating masks. The government is not mandating occupancy restrictions. The government is allowing businesses and the citizens of the state to make these decisions about whether or not we're going to wear a mask. So
Why
the
can't it
government
be a
is
test case? Why can't it we say, okay, there's Texas. Let's see how it works. And if it is Neanderthal thinking, then it'll prove out. You don't have to name call, thank you, Mr. President. You can just see how it works. And I'm wondering, do you think that maybe if a business is saying, well, I'm concerned about this, then you know what? Please, upon entering, you must wear a mask. In fact, we're going to provide you with these silly little paper masks. And
Yeah.
you can come in. We only have 25% capacity. And if people feel concerned, that would be the place that I would go. I'm not going to go to the places that are open. Everyone coughing on each other, dancing, doing the Texas two-step and all of that, right?
Absolutely. But, obviously there are those people that are going to make that choice to go to the Texas two-step, and they're at the Billy Bob Saloon Dance Hall working on their square dancing, or their line dancing, I should say. They're very serious about it there, by the way. I went there once, I tripped and fell. It was very embarrassing. And then I quickly went to the bar and left shortly after. But the point is we are not, we should, if we're going to be a test case, right? Like we should have the choice of whether or not we want to be a test case. I think that when it comes to really kind of gaining adoption for a vaccine and trying to achieve this two-word combination that basically herd immunity, right? Trying to make herd immunity a real thing. Statistically, you have to get about 80% or so of the public to either be vaccinated or to have the antibodies. Now, it's wrong, though, when you mandate this. It's wrong to force the population to make a scientific personal choice about what they're going to do to their body. That's not the government's place. And so I'm glad to see Texas and Mississippi engaging in what some people have called Neanderthal thinking, which I think if you want to point to Neanderthal thinking, what did Cuomo do to the nursing homes in New York? Putting a sick patient into a population of others and just seeing what happens, right? And then let's cover that up also. Let's make sure nobody finds out what we just did. That's Neanderthal thinking. In Texas, we're just trying to live by the Constitution. We're just trying to make sure that people have the right to choose. And that's really the bottom line. My business, we allow people to work from home or from the office. We allow people to wear a mask or not wear a mask. If you're sick, stay home, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, we respect people, and we respect that people are intelligent beings and we're able to critically think for ourselves. We just don't need the government to do that for us. If anything, when we see the government making decisions about how we should live our everyday lives, that's when we have to ask questions and kind of figure out what's the end result and where is this decision coming from? And also, where's the money behind this campaign, by the way? So follow the money, right? It's that's a huge deal here. And so when it comes to what Fauci is doing, there are some interesting connections here between Fauci's family and also big tech. His daughter has worked for Twitter, by the way, for 7 years. And I'm sure she's a good person, yada, yada, yada. But, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So, yeah, follow the money. And when you see data, ask questions about where that data came from. What is the end goal behind it? Is this Coca-Cola sponsoring a study on high fructose corn syrup to their advantage? Or is it a truly independent study? What's going on here?
Yeah, and don't be afraid to question it. Do not be afraid to question it. There's nothing wrong with Governor Cuomo and Media Cuomo being brothers. Nothing wrong with that. But question it when they're on congratulating each other and doing the Smothers Brothers routine with who did mom love most, right? There's nothing wrong with Fauci having a daughter that's with Twitter, but question it when Twitter and social media won't allow another point of view. What are you afraid of? If you're living in truth, then let your truth be not canceled, but rather challenged
When
instead
there's
of
bullying around
canceled.
this, Michelle, I mean, there's literally bullying coming from those who don't feel like we should be able to do that. Keith Olbermann, obviously he's a very vocal individual. His tweet was basically, why are we wasting vaccinations on Texas? I mean, what an ignorant thing to say, right? What an ignorant thing. The bullying that comes from those that are in power in you might say the mainstream media. And by all means, there are very good people in the quote mainstream media as well. But to see big prominent figures with huge platforms and a big following making statements like this to undermine some of these questions that we might have, it's hugely concerning. And it's not just this topic, there's a lot of topics here.
A lot of topics, but it's our fault. We've allowed the media to get away with it. I'm going to tell you a bit of a story because I have a background in the media. And when, a million years ago, I started reporting news and writing news. It was such a joy. I came from a time when you had a passionate point of view, but it was like a badge of honor to do a report and no one know where you really stood on an issue because you were reporting the issue, not your feelings. That actually felt good. It felt as though I was part of the solution because I'm giving information. When you have that information, you make choices. But Adam, I'm writing news, and the man who was training me came in and said, wow, this is good. This is really good writing. However, what we want to do is we want to change this because we want people to think this. If you say this, they can think anything they want. They can come to their own conclusion. Wasn't that the point?
Oh my goodness.
So this was quite a few years ago. And I thought, what are you doing? But that was the mindset, the general mindset. It's how they come out of colleges. Now it's how you're taught. Journalism is no longer about journalism. It's about editorializing and helping people to think the right way. We're not
So,
in
Michelle,
schools. We're
I'm
not
hearing you
teaching
say-
kids how to learn. We're teaching kids, what they should be learning.
So I'm hearing you say then that when you were in a newsroom, your boss or your superior was basically making you as the journalist alter your story based on whatever their end goal was or their motivation. Is that right?
It was, and that
So-
was not unique.
And you work for that
That's why
person,
I
right?
became
So
a
you're
talk
doing
show
this.
host rather than a reporter. Because if I'm going to editorialize, I might as well be honest about it, and I might as well present both sides or an alternative side that the rest of us aren't hearing. So yeah.
Man, I try to think back to the good old days, if there were good old days. CNN, right? Back in the day. What's your take on that? Was that more of a center platform when it first started, when Turner was in charge? I mean,
I think that there was. I mean,
bizarre.
I think that was the going idea. Some of it is ideological. What also happened is that we, as a people, and I don't blame the media as much, I really blame us because we as a people, I've said this over and over again. Where's my cell phone? This thing I have in my hand is with me at all times. If it's not, I panic. Within my fingertips is the wealth of human knowledge. And what did we start caring about? What Kim Kardashian was doing, what's happening with our favorite starlets and stars. Our brains have turned into fermented bread pudding. And so the media, along with it, is just reporting this shocking stuff, the stuff that maybe we want to hear. Then we get to a point where we're using social media and we surround ourselves with these algorithms that keep feeding us what feels good. Yeah, this is what I believe. And sooner or later, we're indoctrinated. Anyone else who thinks differently is bad, is evil. We have lost subjectivity. It's our fault. We can blame the mainstream media all we want. It's our fault. We've got everything we need right here. We're too darn lazy to look into it. There you go.
Yeah,
Wealth
well,
of
it's
human
like- it's
knowledge.
evolution. You're so right. It's like this natural evolution of, kind of this combination of media source or a source of information and these quick hits for satisfaction and gratification and information. And Michelle, we literally have less of an attention span now than a goldfish, which is insane. But yeah, it's because
I'm
of
sorry,
mobile-
I was thinking of something else. What were you saying?
less of an attention yeah. Oh, butterfly. It's absolutely crazy. And as a digital marketer, I feel like I have to take some responsibility as well. I mean, we digital marketers are trying to attract clicks to advertisements to either like earn money for their client or whatever the goal might be. It's all about getting clicks and attention and engagement, and really social media as a business model, mainstream social media, Facebook, Twitter, they rely on ads and they rely on businesses to spend money on their ad platforms. But the only way those businesses are going to spend money is if they're able to entice people to click on the advertisements to either make a purchase or set up a consultation or whatever that business goal might be. But then you have the news media competing for that same attention. And they do so with headlines like, Kim Kardashian just broke the internet. And you're just like, what'd she do? What'd she do? I should
or you're like, who is that? And why do I care? And
Exactly
that explains
right.
a lot. But what about places like NPR? You know, that at this point now you're saying, okay, now it's the norm. And now the natural result of this road we've been going down is to cancel. And so I wanted to kind of get into the cancel report. We have a whole new list every single week of things that are no longer allowed.
We're going to be on this list here soon after talking about COVID.
I know, right?
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine?
I think we need to have t-shirts. I'm going to get them made up. You're going to find them at MyMichelleLive. It's just going to say canceled. 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 Just, preemptive.
I'll wear it on Fridays.
There you go. So what's new on the canceled list, Adam?
Michelle, like, all right, what you ever read a Dr. Seuss book?
Ha 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 ha. Funny you should ask.
I mean, my goodness, that's literally on the cancel list, y'all. So here's the thing. So, I love Dr. Seuss. I read all the books, and basically it seems like a group of people are a little bit unhappy with the subject matter of some of Dr. Seuss's first books. Some of the books that he actually concepted while he was traveling from Europe to the United States back in 1936 as an immigrant. So they're trying to cancel 6 of his books. And in a nutshell, the response to that was quite interesting, actually. 9 out of 10 books on the Amazon top 10 list are Dr. Seuss books right now. People are trying to buy these books before they're canceled because people don't want them to be canceled. No. So, we're seeing people kind of look at the subject matter of some of his children's stories. And by the way, Green Eggs and Ham is safe. Nobody's taken that one away from us. Thank goodness for that.
Why are the eggs green?
In my case, it was food coloring, and it was
right?
It tasted the same. It didn't look the same, but it tasted the same.
Oh, just like skin color. It doesn't really matter. We're still the human race. In Dr. Seuss's books, Adam, when you look at some of these that are canceled, If I Ran the Zoo is one, what he uses is caricatures. So they're not demeaning. They're not saying, subhuman. They're caricatures of real things in real places in the real world that are just made into silliness, maybe as a way to kind of explore what's out there. And you can find offense if you want to. Perhaps we need to have on every book, like we have on movies, sexual situations, violence. We even have smoking now, drug use, possible racial issues. And we'll get to that in a minute. I watched Gone with the Wind this week, but I did want to share with you deep meaning poem that I wrote on behalf of Dr. Seuss. That is, I'll put it on the webpage, but it's also on TikTok. Here it is.
Beware, beware, cat in the hat. Horton, he's racist. You should be aghast. All the who's down in Whoville are white. Can't you see? They must be chided and canceled by you and by me. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish teaches math that is racist, not subjective and newish. Dr. Seuss, with his pen and fantastical scribblings, should be feared and hated like a 2-headed wibbling. Make room on library shelves for reading books denouncing white privilege with socialist leanings. That is, if you can read, because that's not what we're teaching. We're the woke, tolerant purveyors of love. Unless you're white, male, Christian, or voted for Don. For if you do not align with the Think of Art group, you too will be canceled, like old Dr. Seuss.
There you go.
Well, I feel educated. That was
Why can't we
great.
write books like that?
You're very talented, Michelle. Very, very talented. Whoa, that's Lisa Michelle, y'all.
Yeah,
Let me get that autograph.
ouch. Yeah, there you go. Man, so poor Dr. Seuss canceled. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head do not get to identify how they wish to identify. They've been canceled, which makes no sense to me because you could take those pieces, unlike humans without a lot of pain and expensive surgery, and put whatever you want wherever you want. So why cancel? You know that you can't even identify as a Mr. or Mrs. because that's just wrong. It's hateful. I'm so confused.
It's absurd. I mean, it's absurd to see these concepts that I think we've grown up with in some ways, or that have influenced us at various points of our lives, be literally canceled. I mean, just the idea of being canceled is so un-American. It's just so crazy. Let's look back here just at recent history. Dr. Seuss, Eminem is another one. I mean, okay, you cannot. All right, listen. No one's going to be able to cancel Eminem. Like, the guy can't even cancel himself. Like, he's got too much game when it comes to just responses and rap battles. And I think Gen Z tried to, like, beat him up a little bit with Machine Gun Kelly, with this little rap battle between Machine Gun Kelly versus Eminem. But the dude is so talented. He's got a response for everything. And people are still going to buy his albums. You know, I saw a quote on Twitter. It was something like, millennials try to cancel Eminem, but then he released a movie and made tons of money, and then released some more music, and just, you cannot stop that, you know?
Now,
and
look
so
what's
and
happening with guns. We're trying to cancel guns, and there, especially during the pandemic, no one had anything better to do than to go out and buy more guns and ammunition. You couldn't find it anywhere. Crazy.
no way. But it's crazy to say, okay, Eminem is a guy who's promoting violence. I mean, looking back to even like Tupac Shakur, right? He used art to kind of describe, obviously, a very intimate social reality that he was experiencing just as an American. Eminem uses art to, like with Rihanna, to talk about domestic violence, and people misinterpret what might sound like angry lyrics. They don't understand sort of what the overall context might be to a piece of art that might be a rap song. So to say that Eminem's sitting here trying
looking to be offended. This is from one of
Right.
our live comments. People are searching for things to be offended by. We can look deeply into what's happening, what we're seeing, television shows, and we can, if we're really looking for, we can find a demon under any rock to support the way that we feel. And I find it pretty dangerous. We're getting to the point where it's brother against brother anymore.
Oh yeah, without question. It's really concerning, and it's really sad to see. You know, there's all sorts of people that are kind of talking about the fact that cancel culture will quite literally get rid of diversity of thought, and it'll get rid of open conversations that lead towards more productive realities and more productive end results, right? We need to be able to listen to things that we don't like or that make us feel a little bit insecure. We need to be able to listen to them and then have an actual conversation about maybe why we don't like what we're hearing and why we feel the way we feel. You know, without that dialogue, we lose so much as a country. We're going to literally end up like China right now. You know, you cannot have a free thought over there that the government doesn't put in your brain, right? God forbid we think of something creative and different. That's what makes our country amazing. That's why we're one of the most innovative forces in the world. We create the best companies, the best technology, the best healthcare, the best education system. We are so far from perfect. But the day that we stop people from using their own minds and celebrating their individual differences and their unique characteristics and backgrounds, we're in a rough spot, right? And so I think to see a lot of big, influencers, both in, parts of the political spectrum, but also in Hollywood of all places, step up to say, you know what, we feel differently than what you're seeing on Twitter, and we feel differently than what you're hearing from the politicians in DC. We have thoughts of our own. It's great to see that we're not the only ones.
Right? And ideas are not dangerous, right? When people go off the rails and turn it into a physical battle, then yeah, that's dangerous and it's silly. And the reason we get there is because we've lost the ability to dialogue. You may think differently than me. Come on, bring it on. Let's talk about it. We have devolved into an ad hominem. We cannot any longer argue about things or take that. We have to cut down to, well, you are bad, you are evil. We have lost the ability. We've also lost the ability to look at the past. We want to erase and cancel the past, tear down statues instead of maybe putting on there, this is what this was about, and getting people to think. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
This week I mentioned I watched Gone with the Wind again for the upteenth billionth time. It does now come with a warning that there will be scenes of racism. Thoughtfully, though, saying, we need to look at this and learn from it, which is really true. It gives you an insight into what life was like in the South and from a Southerner's point of view, which is very important if you want to grow and find out what happened, what was the mindset, who were some of the good people, how were you even see some of the change, Adam, that in mindsets of people saying, well, we were good to our slaves and I wanted to free them once my dad passed away. You heard a lot of that, and it helps you to understand where we were so we never go back.
Without question, if we forget about our history and we forget about why we're where we are, what happens when history repeats itself, right? And in one way or another,
Like
incredibly
now?
scary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're canceling.
Yeah. And I know you've
Not
got
the
a trip
first time.
right. And you've got a trip to Houston coming up soon, right? The Civil
I
War
do.
literally stopped in Galveston, just outside of Houston. And frankly, it stopped a lot. I forgot the timing. It was like a year or so, maybe a little bit more after the actual documents were signed, ending the Civil War. That was one of the most awful things that could have happened in our history. But and to think of a repeat of that is just absolutely devastating. We have to be able to have discussions, and we have to be able to communicate. And by canceling ideas and canceling conversations, you create a pressure cooker that literally boils. And then over time, that pressure cooker explodes, and you're either in a violent military conflict, or you're in a very heated exchange that leads to nothing but destruction, and it's a terrible thing to even think about. So as a country, we have to just use our heads, take a breath, and have a conversation with our neighbors about what we're feeling, why we're feeling it. And the interesting thing is, Michelle, I think you and I spoke a couple times ago, but we will find that we have a lot more in common with our neighbors than not. And that's just the reality.
That's right.
Yeah.
You and I may just be a couple of carrots floating around in the cauldron of bubbling, boiling, crazy soup that America is right now. But having a conversation and giving more information than what we're getting, that is part of the solution, as long as we still have the freedom to broadcast that. And as long as we do, we'll keep doing it here. Adam Ruzzieri is Chief Marketing Officer at Agency Partner Interactive. We have a link, of course, everywhere that you're going to be listening to this in the podcast version. And he is the man that gives us the Riz Report.
Let's review the week. The Riz Report with Adam Ruzzieri.
Thanks
So
so
cool.
much for listening. And don't forget, you can find us at MyMichelleLive.com.